so horrendous that he tried to tone it down. But then one day, the ruler of Maiduguri, the ruler of Borno, sent for him and said to him, my son, I hear you have been causing a lot of trouble for our people in the border. I have invited you here today to tell you that I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I hope you get the lesson. That is it. There was nothing that connected us. There was no moral or cultural anything that bound us together with another. Except, I repeat, that we were being made to pay the salaries of the British civil servants who served the Northern Protectorate. Then the Second World War came to an end in 1945, and then the British decided that we must be run as a country, especially because the belief was all over Africa and the world that African countries will now develop towards independence. So it was necessary to give us a constitution. That is the point. The constitution that was fashioned between 1936 and 1939, between 1946 and 1949 was the real constitution that created one Nigeria. And it created Nigeria as a federation. I want to let you know that the British were not sure what to do. So they published an invitation to anybody, any Nigerian who had any proposal, suggestion as to how to organize the new country. And the Yoruba leadership organization, Egbe Omoduduwa, wrote a great memo proposing a federal constitution. That is the first major statement that anybody ever made about creating a constitution, about creating a federal country for Nigeria. It was well received by everybody. It was applauded everywhere. It was applauded by the British. It was applauded even in London. And so the attempt was made to create a federation. But then something happened. The suggestion, the fear that Nigeria will become independent not too long after 1949 was in the air. And the British wanted to make sure that even though the country will become independent, they must have control of its economy. You see, the war had ended with the economy of Britain, of the United Kingdom, in shambles. Most British cities were in ruins. The recovery was expensive, and Nigeria was a major contributor to the funding of the recovery. And the British were determined that the funding from Nigeria would continue. And so they were being very careful from the beginning in whose hands they would leave the country. Who will we give the country to that will let us continue to draw all these resources from Nigeria? The answer was the Fulani. Why? Because the Fulani were not educated. They were not interested in education. They had shown that they could subdue the Hausa nation. That's their greatest credential. So we, the British, will work with them in order to ensure the continuation of our own benefit from Nigeria. And so they began to mentor them into the task. In the year 2013, our older sister, Teju Alakija, the Oni Aderemi's oldest daughter, was in Philadelphia where I was living to do the naming ceremony for his grandchild, for her grandchild, her daughter's little baby. She found out that I was in the area. She found me out, and she asked me to come and celebrate the usual Yoruba naming ceremony. Orogboni, Obini, and so on. I said, well, I've done it before at home. So I went and did it. And when we were having dinner, Mama said, Banji, there is a story that I have needed to tell somebody since my youth that I have never told anybody, but that I must tell you now. She was already very old. She couldn't walk anymore, and so on. Here is the story she told me. The war came to an end in 1945 September. In January 1946, I was offered admission in a college in London, in a girls' college in London. And we were ready to pay, we were able to pay the fees. My father was able to pay the fees, but there was no way for me to get to London. In those days, there were no aeroplanes yet. Every journey to London had to go by boat. But all the boats leaving Nigeria and Ghana, the British colonies, were filled with British officials who had been stranded in Nigeria since the beginning of the war in 1939 and who are now returning home with their wives and their children. So there was no place for anybody at all on any ship. And as I sat home weeping, my father decided to go and ask for the help of the Governor General. So she went to Lagos, appealed to the Governor General on behalf of his little daughter who was crying at home. And the Governor General said, okay, I will help. I will see how I can help. A few days later, the Governor General called for his father and told him, your daughter has a place on a boat now to go to London. And so she found herself on a boat going to London. She said the entire ship was filled with white people, British civil servants who are returning home with their families. There was no room for any other person. But he then discovered after a few days that there were some other Nigerians on the boat, 5 of them, and that all of them were northerners. Sir Amadu Bello, Sir Tafawa Balewa, Alhaji Ribadu, Alhaji Noah Wada, and I think Buka Dipcharima. And so she became curious. And so she began to find out what are they going to do in London that other people from other parts of Nigeria are not entitled to go. And she found that those people were being taken to London So where they were going to be briefed and educated and mentored about how to rule Nigeria, how to hold Nigeria in their hands after independence. So that's our story. The story of a country that was started deliberately with the intention of enthroning some people on it. And it was the least educated, the least capable to run the affairs of a modern country that the British chose. And they chose them because they were the easiest to manipulate. Then came the events of the 1950s. And the British became more and more convinced when they saw the stunning achievements of Chief Awolowo in the Western region that they would never let this man and his people rule this country. Whatever has to be done will be done to prevent them from ever tasting power in Nigeria. And so, all the future of the country called Nigeria was determined that a people called the Fulani will rule Nigeria, that a people called the Yoruba would never taste power in Nigeria because they were too well educated. They were already well educated before the British came in the 19th century. By the time that the British came and they were establishing their territories in Yoruba land in the 1990s, many Yoruba families had produced two generations of university graduates. When Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914, the Yoruba nation was the only nation in it that was educated. And all that people talk about Yoruba's Nigerian nationalism was entirely Yoruba nationalism because the Yoruba were the only people who had the education. So the British said, these Yoruba, they are not typical black people. They cannot be cheated, they cannot be deceived. They are as educated as we are, sometimes better educated than we are. And so we cannot put the affairs of our largest country in Africa in their hands. We must keep them low, keep them down. So all the time that things were happening in Nigeria in the 1950s, and Chief Awolowo was performing wonders in Ibadan, and Western region was becoming, Western region became the pace setter in all areas of development. The British were not very happy about it. All of those things became for them proof that if these people called the Yoruba are allowed to rule Nigeria, we will be finished. We won't be able to benefit as much from Nigeria as we want to. 1959 came. Chief Awolowo and the Action Group ran one of the most titanic election campaigns ever in the history of Africa. He won the election, but it was rigged against him for the Northerners. The question whether it was rigged is no longer a debate, it's no longer a point of debate. We all know that that is what happened. Even some of the people who rigged the election, some of the British themselves, some of the British people themselves who rigged the election have written memoirs to say we rigged the election. We were asked to rig the election. Our employers from London, our superiors from London, asked us to rig the election, and we did. One of them wrote a memoir which he called Blue Collar Lawman. He was a young man from Oxford, and he was he was not sure that the way the British were running the affairs of Nigeria and leaving the Yoruba out was a good thing to happen to a country. And he was often grumbling. So he said, he told the story. I have heard him tell the story. He said one day the Governor General, James Robertson, called for him. His name is William Smith. And the Governor General said to him, Smith, you have problems. Your first problem is, I hear you have been grumbling that the way we are running the affairs of this country are wrong, are not worthy of a nation like the British to be trying to twist the political life of a country. Well, I say you have a problem because that's what we are asked to do. You are right. That's what we are doing, and that's what we are asked to do here. So that's your problem. Then I hear, Smith, I hear that you have been talking about the fact that we appear to be planning to rig the election for the Northerners, the 1959 election, the pre-independence election for the Northerners. Again, you have a problem because you are right. What we are going to do is to enthrone the Northerners as rulers of Nigeria. And you have yet another problem. I have set up a committee to handle the secret operations, the covert operations for rigging the elections. And I have appointed you to chair that committee. He said I was a young man. My first thought when I got out of his office was to go and pack my load and run away somewhere where they would never find me. But I knew the British government would find me, and when they found me, they would kill me. So I decided to surrender, and we rigged the election for the North. He said, and I think he wrote in his memoir, that he can never get over the fact that the British, who are regarded as a civilized people, ruled by a class of well-educated and civilized gentlemen, descendants of great families, who sit in an office in London and distort the future of a great African country that was coming. I can never get over that. But that was not all. The elections went, and Awolowo became leader of opposition in the federal parliament, and so on. And another leading member of the party was brought home to be premier of the Western region. Then the British saw their chance to move. They must disrupt the party, destroy the party, destroy Awolowo. And I have learned that the original thinking in all the planning for the 1962 disruption of the Western region, the declaration of a state of emergency in the region, the arrest of Chief Awolowo and his trial for treasonable felony was originally planned to do something worse. They were going to charge him for treason, find him guilty, and execute him. But some British families intervened, and so the thing was toned down to treasonable felony, punishable by imprisonment. And so, the one person who had the knowledge, the capability, the expertise, and the zeal and willingness to make Nigeria work was crushed. When they kept rigging elections then to enthrone a group that will be submissive to the North, I was just passing out of university in Ibadan. That time, 1962, I had been working in Christ School as a teacher for a few months. And a good number of us got together and decided, well, we are nobody. We don't have anything. Most of us were not even yet married. We have no money, no house, nothing. But we are citizens of this place. It be enough for you was all they see, and we are not going to let anybody take it away from us. I'm telling you the story of how what you now call wedge here came into being. Chief Ayo Fasami was our president, and I was his vice president. And we fought and fought until the military took over. For a start, we were happy. But then the military went forward and ruled for until 1979, more or less. And all that time, they were twisting Nigeria, destroying the federal idea, instituting a central command system for Nigeria, and putting all of that in the hands of the House of Fulani, of the Fulani. In 1978, after Bapa came out of prison and he served in the Gawan government, he came to us in Ife. I was by then a university professor. And he said, well, in spite of all that has happened, Nigeria is our country. We have the ability to build it and make it a great country. Let us go and do it. And we agreed. The leading people in the university, Professor Oluwaseun, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Sam Aluko, Professor Yenuga, Faculty of Law, then young professors like myself, David Oke, and so on, people from the administration, Wumi Adegmamire, we gathered together and we promised Baba that we were going to support him. And we worked with him to create the Unity Party of Nigeria. I was chairman of many of the committees that wrote the position papers for the UPN, and in the end, I wrote the manifesto of the party. And we ran a great campaign. We were scattered all over Nigeria. First, I was working in Benue State. Then I was whisked to Cross River State at the time, to Uyo, where we were experiencing some difficulty. Again, all the statistics available to us showed that we won that election. But the British had taught the people they were handing Nigeria over to one important lesson. And this is the lesson. And this is the root of failure. The lesson is this. All the running around, all the political party campaigns and noise and so on is just for the consumption of the people. That is not what decides who will rule the country. The people who decide who will rule the country are the people who are ruling the country now. The power is in their hands. And it is they who will empower and enthrone the next rulers, not the elections, not the campaigns. So, very dangerous, very dangerous diseases were fed into the body politic of Nigeria. First, the enthronement of a people who have no idea of modernity and cannot lead a country to a modern development. 2 years ago, a Fulani member of the House of Representatives stood up in the House of Representatives and made this following staggering statement. Well, as you know, we Fulani don't go to school. We don't know what universities are all about. And the only time we think we have no problem with electricity and third road and so on. The only time we think we have a problem is when we don't have cows or when we lose our cows. We cannot blame the Fulani for dragging Nigeria down. They have never in their whole history built a town or a village. They have been migrating people. Hausa land is the first place on earth where the people allowed the Fulani to take over their homeland. And they progressively destroyed the culture, the economy, and the confidence of the Hausa people. Today, some Fulani are bragging that they have succeeded in destroying the Hausa nation. And that all that survives, all that has survived is only the Hausa language. So there was enthroned on Nigeria a people whose only idea of governance is to destroy and subdue and suppress the people so that they can rule and have full access to the resources. That's their idea of government. 12 days after independence in 1960, independence was October 1. Independence celebration was October 1. On the 12th of October, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the leader of the Fulani, was quoted as making the following statement in Kaduna. This new nation called Nigeria shall be an extension of the estate of our great-grandfather Osman Dan Fodio. We will use the peoples of the Middle Belt as willing tools and the peoples of the South as conquered territory, and never let them rule over us, and never let them control their own future. Hear that statement again. This new nation called Nigeria shall be the extension of the estate of our great-grandfather Osman Dan Fodio. We will use the peoples of the Middle Belt as willing tools and the peoples of the South as conquered territory, and never let them rule over us, and never let them control their own future. Those who are going around saying, making friends with the Fulani, we want to serve, we want restructuring, and so on and so forth. They don't know what they're dealing with. When I came back from Nigeria, I naturally gravitated towards the group that in which I had many of my friends, Akintoye. I wrote a memo for Akintoye suggesting that we needed to look at what was happening in Nigeria more critically than we were doing, instead of just talking clap trap about restructuring. The document exists. And while the anger against me was building among some people, most members were happy and glad, but there were people who thought that I was destroying their business. The young people met in Ibadan and decided that they had elected me to come and lead them. And after thinking about it for a whole month, I finally agreed to lead them, and I've been in the struggle for Yoruba self-determination since then. It is the only thing we can do. Anybody who tells you that there is something else, I'm a dogma see, Tinubu, and so on. It is not a question of becoming president or not becoming president. The fundamentals of Nigeria are well established, and they are established so that the Fulani will be in control, even if you are president. Ask Obasanjo, ask Jonathan. Finally, in 1999, after a whole decade of horrible disruption by Abacha, during which many of our leaders had to flee abroad into exile, the man who was president cooked up some constitution, gathered some people together in Asoro, cooked up the constitution, and issued it by decree without any reference to Nigeria whatsoever. When you have managed your affairs in such a way that there is a people among you who can do such horrible things, who have the confidence that they can do such horrible things, then the country cannot exist. So that's how gradually Nigeria has been run aground. In order to make it easy for them to control, in 1978, they changed the parliamentary system to a presidential system so that they can enthrone a Fulani man or a sort of, or a subordinate person under the Fulani to rule Nigeria. And that has been working. Finally, they put it all together in the 1999 Constitution. I'm skipping a lot in order to give you the idea of what is happening in Nigeria. And so what stage are we in now? When I was a young professor, David Oke and I were from Ife, and we were in the Senate, and we had a number of friends and our UPN something, and we began to wonder, how is it possible to institute so much corruption as was going on under Shagari? How is that possible? Within a year, 2 years, the whole place was awash with corruption. How? We went and saw Papa in Park Lane, and he said, well, your duty, you are the intellectuals, do the research and find out. And this is what we found. I have written this to people before when I was in America, and when they read it, they told me, I cannot even keep this paper in my house because this is what happened. particular instrument that the North were taught to use to control, keep hold on the control of Nigeria was to keep the Middle Belt as part of Nigeria and to use the peoples of the Middle Belt, as Ahmadu Bello said, as willing tools. And they succeeded magnificently with that. So that people like Danjuma were calling themselves Northern military officers. And they would do anything that the Northern government wanted them to do. Even when the thief people revolted against the Northern regional government, it was mostly officers and soldiers from the same Middle Belt that went out to fight the thieves. So they were really willing to. But in 1966, in 1967, as the Igbo leadership were talking about secession and announced secession, Gawan decided that the one thing to do to stop them was to break Nigeria into many states. So the North was broken in such a way that the Middle Belt was separated from the North. And so the Fulani leadership then strategized that since they have lost control over the Middle Belt, it was going to become very difficult for them to continue to hold Nigeria. So in 1978, they held a series of meetings. And some of the most respected Islamic leaders were invited to those meetings. And people like Mohammed Gumi assured them that it is permissible in Islam to use public money to buy the loyalty of prominent citizens. So we don't have the Middle Belt anymore, but Nigeria has a lot of money now from the oil wells. And we must now systematically use that money to subdue and emasculate the political elite of the South. And the way to do it is when they occupy position, let them steal as much money as they and don't ask about it. They will let us rule them because we will let them take the money. We went and reported to our father that that's what we had found. He was astounded. You mean some people are saying that they would destroy the leadership of Nigeria by using money? I would say yes. And that's what has been happening. I am not saying that human greed is not part of the corruption in Nigeria. It's part of it. But the bigger and more fundamental part of it is the deliberate decision of a section of the country to use the wealth of Nigeria to destroy, subdue, and emasculate the leadership, the political leadership of the rest of Nigeria. And it has succeeded marvelously. Look at what our leaders are doing in the Southwest. They no longer rule as Yoruba leaders. They rule as Fulani leaders, and they're after the money. And under that kind of leadership, the Yoruba Southwest has been going down and down and down. People from the East who are running away from the destruction of their own economy in the East came to Yoruba land and they began to do some trading anyhow. And they took over the trading of Yoruba land. And our governors had no answer to it. In 2014 or 2013, a young man, a young Ekiti boy living abroad came home, was in Ado Ekiti, and he wrote something for the social media that for more than 2 days, the whole of Ado Ekiti shops were shut down because the Igbo had gone home to go and celebrate something in their homeland in the east. And they had shut down their shops, and there was no place to buy anything in Ado Ekiti, the capital city of Yoruba of the Ekiti state. Then something more horrible then happened. In 2013, I think it was August 2013, the leadership of the Fulani held a meeting in Burkina Faso. I think it's in a town called Bori in northern Burkina Faso. And they said it was time that the Fulani should have a homeland of their own. We've never had a homeland because we have always been migratory, nomadic. But now God has given us a country called Nigeria, and we must take it by force. That's when you began to hear Fulani people talk of who are born to rule, who are doing it, and so on and so forth. And one Ali wrote a very staggering piece in which he said, in 1960, Allah, through the British, gave us Nigeria to rule and to do with as we please. We have been doing just that since 1960, and we intend to continue. In 1966, the Igbo tried to wrestle the control of Nigeria from their hands, and they were crushed in a civil war. If any other people try to do so now, we shall kill, maim, destroy. I'm quoting him. Those are his words. We shall kill, maim, destroy, and turn Nigeria into the greatest bloodbath on the African continent. The Mujahideen are ready, and by Allah, we shall win. Not long after that, the Fulani herdsmen, accompanied by military men, began to invade all of Nigeria, including the south, including Yoruba land. And they have been at it since then. You think, oh, this is just herdsmen. It's not just herdsmen. It is a national agenda of the Fulani. They have never owned a homeland, and they do not believe that any nation has a homeland. The idea of a national homeland is alien to them. So the Yoruba have no right to be claiming that they have a homeland. It is not their homeland. If we can deceive them or conquer them to take it away from them, then God has given it to us. That's the philosophy. In January 2018, the Fulani went and killed large numbers of people in Benue State and destroyed many villages. And so some elders thought we should go and commiserate with them. And we were asked to bring 4 people from every zone, 4 people from the Yoruba, 4 people from the Igbo, 4 people from the South, 4 people from the Middle Belt, 16 of us. We all met in Abuja and flew to Makurdi. The governor of Benue State was waiting for us with all the elite of his Benue State. And after we had greeted them and commiserated with them, the governor then said something that was very, very strange. He stood up and thanked us. And then he said, well, the disaster for which you have come to visit us now is a little thing compared with the disaster that is coming. The people who said they were coming to kill and destroy us, and we gave the letters to the federal government, to the president, to the vice president, to the head of the military, to the head of the police, and so on and so forth, and they did nothing. And these people came on January 1 and killed large numbers of our people. We are still doing mass burials and conducting national mourning. But all of that seems now to be a small thing compared with what is coming. And I'm saying that because the same people who wrote to us to say they are coming to destroy us are now reaching again between the time of their attack on January 1 and today. And here is the letter. The letter said, dear Governor of Benue State, we see that you and your people are mourning and conducting mass burials. That is a little thing compared with what we are bringing to you. We are coming. And we have built, and the problem with us is that you regard the land in your state as belonging to the ethnic groups that live in your state. But the land doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us Fulani. Allah has given it to us. And we are not talking of the ethnic groups in Benue State alone. We are talking of ethnic groups in all parts of Nigeria, the Yoruba, the Igbo, and so on. Allah has given it to us, and we have a reason now to take it. And we will take it by force. We have accumulated money and weapons for the war. And if we have to go on for decades or even centuries, we are ready to go on until we subdue you all. If you think your federal government will stand up and defend you, you're deceiving yourself. Around about the same time, there was a fight between Yoruba kids, Yoruba youth, and the Hausa Fulani in Sabo in Ife. Again, as is the tradition of the Yoruba, the leaders got together and thought we cannot leave Ife people to be doing this to foreigners, we can't, and so on. The Oni encouraged us to send a delegation. So we sent a delegation. I was on that delegation. And we started in a small, we had visited Ife to thank the Oni, because it was the Oni who prevented the real horror in that city that day. Our boys were ready to wipe out the entire Hausa Fulani community in the Sabo. And they were ready. They were pushing them forward. Until the Oni came and stretched out his mighty hands and said, Ife, please don't do this in my time. And save the situation. So we went and thanked the Oni. We went and visited the Yoruba people, the Ife people, in the big hall in front of the palace. And then the Oni had asked the Sabo people to wait for us, and they were waiting for us, and we went to visit them too. And we were nice and so on. We gave out gifts, etc., and appealed to them, please don't do anything that will bring conflict between you and your hosts, and so on and so forth. And the leader, who was a Fulani man, leader of the Sabo, who was a Fulani man, that's something. If the Hausa are the traders, the Fulani are not traders. When the Hausa go out and create a Sabo in a town, they cannot make one of themselves the ruler of it. By the law that exists in the Hausa land, they must go and find a Fulani man to come and lead them. Come and be their Siriki or whatever the title they might give him. So this Fulani man answered for a start, he said good, nice things, thanked us for coming, etc. Then it got to the key, the core of what he wanted, he was eager to communicate to us. He said, God is the owner of all land. God is the owner of all land. It is true that at the beginning, God gave your father Oduduwa this piece of land called Yoruba land today for his use and the use of his children. And you have used it for many thousands of years. But God has never given up ownership of the land. He has never abdicated ownership of the land. The land still belongs to God. And it is entirely in his power to give it to another nation now that is not Yoruba. The land belongs to God. God has never abdicated ownership of the land. And it's entirely in his power, in his prerogative, to give it to another people today who are not Yoruba.
Oh, God.
So, item by item, things that should not be done in the management of any country have been done in Nigeria. The British imposed a people who could never run a modern country. The people to whom they bequeathed then went out to try and subdue the rest of Nigeria. And they did so by starting with the Western region in 1962. And they have been at it all the time. The idea of federalism has died out. The center now controls everything. That's not how to rule a multinational country. There is no interest in the economy. The only interest that the rulers of Nigeria have in the economy is how they will take money out of the economy for themselves. That's what we call corruption. They don't see it as corruption. In 1982, I was on a national mission with a Fulani senator, Senator Jallo Waziri. He was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of Senate, and I was his vice chairman. And the two of us were sent to go and attend something in Egypt, and we were coming back in the night. Just two of us in a small plane, and we had time to talk. One of the things he said to me that day is, it is you, Awolowo boys, and your father, Awolowo, who invented the idea of corruption in Nigeria. What is corruption? In our own culture, when a man becomes the ruler of a village or a city or a country or whatever, all the resources of that entity is his to do with what he pleases. He said, for example, let me give you an example. We all know you, professor, you don't want money. All you want in your life is knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Okay. But if it is the will of God that you will become a millionaire, Shagari, who is the owner of the resources of Nigeria, can invite you to his house one day and tell the people in charge of money to give you millions to take home. Then you become a millionaire. That is Shagari carrying out the will of God. He owes no explanation to anybody but to God. And if Jallo Waziri, if I was present and I saw it happen, and I began to go around saying that Jallo Waziri, I have seen corruption. I was present and I saw it President gave Professor Akintoye millions of naira and so on and so forth. That's corruption. I am committing a sin and God will punish me for that. Because all that Shagari has done is to carry out the will of God. Everything that are designed to destroy a country have been fed into Nigeria, and there is no way out. The poverty of the people is an inevitable consequence. Today, international agencies are saying that Nigeria is one of the poorest countries in the world and is getting poorer and poorer faster than any other country alive. A United Nations country analysis published in 2014 to 15 said that Nigeria has fallen so far down that it is difficult to see how it can pick itself together again. The poverty is egregious and growing. About 80 million, the report said, the Nigerian people, representing about 64% of the population, are living below the poverty line. 2 years later, an international agency monitoring extreme poverty in the world came to the conclusion that Nigeria was the home of extreme poverty in the world. The United Nations report says that Nigeria is the poorest in the world today in access to electricity, to pure water, to good roads, to good governance, to good judiciary services, and everything. That all the development indices in Nigeria are operating below below the poverty line. And another international agency monitoring population trends in the world says that Nigeria has one of the fastest growing populations in the world. That very soon, by 2030, Nigeria will have overtaken many countries and will become the fourth largest country in the world. After China, the third largest, I'm not sure. After China, United States, then there will come Nigeria. And what that means is that Nigeria is growing fast while its economic performance is going lower and lower and lower. And so the world is heading towards a disastrous picture in Nigeria. Today, poverty has reached such levels that Nigerians don't have electricity. Look at it. Nigeria sells electricity to Benin Republic. And Benin Republic has regular electricity all the time. Not only that, we are Yoruba and we have Yoruba families here who want us to come and visit their villages, and we drive far, far, far into the bush. Every hut, every village, every hamlet that we see along the road has electricity. You don't hear the sound of generator in Benin Republic. Why? Because the people who are managing the electricity in Benin Republic are educated people who are capable to do what they are appointed to do. In Nigeria, it is not so. Nigeria is the 8th largest producer of crude oil in the world, but Nigeria has no electricity, no refined oil, because the refineries we established have all ground to death. Our roads, especially in the south, are deteriorating fast and fast and fast. The federal roads in the south, especially in Yoruba land, are no longer roads. Ado-Ekiti and Akure are two state capitals, just about 28 miles apart. There is no road there connecting them anymore. If you go to Ado now by air from Lagos, you cannot, the taxi cab or the car or hired car that will take you from Akure is not going to take you to drive straight the 28 miles to Akure to Ado-Ekiti. It's going to go out on the road to Ilesha until it comes to Igbaraoke. Then it will go right and go up the hills to Ilawe, and from there to Ado-Ekiti. That's a journey of about 78 miles in the place of 28 miles. That's what we experience. And some people are talking of restructuring. I mean, why? The worst of it all is that our own rulers, our own governors have become Fulani rulers. The traditional thing with the Fulani is this, that when they know how to tax people. Lugard wrote in his handing over notes in 1919 that they would tax anybody. They would tax the trader, they would tax the farmer, they would tax even people who wake up in the night to go and hunt for honey in the bush. They would tax people who carry firewood for sale. Then when all the tax has been collected and brought to the emir, he will give his chief official, the Galadima, the Waziri, and so on, their own little shares. Then he will keep the rest. And then they will go and continue to collect more taxes. That's all that the Fulani know about economy. And that's how they are managing the economy of Nigeria today. Seize and grab and hold. That is it. There is no regular economy. And we are now at a point when the Nigerian economy can grind to a halt very soon. But what our governors are doing also is that they will go to Abuja, bring the money from Abuja, maybe deposit it in their wives' account for about 2 or 3 months so that it can yield some interest there, and then do with it whatever they like. Under Chief Awolowo's leadership in the 1950s, there were powerful rules that guarded the touching of public money. Awolowo, our father Awolowo, as premier, could not put his hand upon any money belonging to the Western region. The money, and the department or needs money, they will put up the voucher and it will go to the chief of service and it will go to the accountant general and so on. Even if it is Chief Awolowo's department as premier that needed the money, that was the way to get it. It could not just call up money. Whereas today, our governors can call up money and just do whatever they like with it, give it to their wives and whatever, friends. So they have destroyed our traditional system of governance. What our father Awolowo was doing in the 1950s was to modernize the Yoruba system of governance. The sole purpose of governance in the history and culture of the Yoruba people is to minister to the welfare of the people. But that has been abandoned now. Foreigners come and take over the trade of our land, and our governors do nothing about it. I am told that it is easier for anybody who can bribe, no matter where you come from, to acquire a certificate of occupancy to land in Lagos. If you are Yoruba and you apply and you are waiting, you will wait for Godot. You wait for a long time. Now the Fulani are taking over our land, and our governors are doing nothing about it. There is one governor in the east of Yoruba land in Ondo State. The governor called Akintoye. He's different a little. But there is no part of Yoruba land. In fact, in some parts of Yoruba land, if you dare to make an effort to deal with the Fulani who are coming to kill, maim, destroy, and rape and kidnap in your locality, the governor will order your arrest. So that's who we are now today. You can hear all the indices of how not to run the affairs of a country. Now Nigeria is teetering on the edge of collapse and disintegration. And it must be our duty to pray that God will make the disintegration happen quickly and peacefully. Nigeria has become a terrible entity on earth. In the interest of humanity, it needs to disintegrate and disappear so that the various peoples in it can find ways to rule themselves. We Yoruba can rule ourselves. We can go back to the Yoruba tradition of governance. and create a country that is a laughing, loving, illuminated country, peopled by free and happy men and women. We can do it, but we cannot do it in Nigeria. We can only do it in our own country. You have heard how, and in my dream, it says, you have been allowed to go through these experiences in Nigeria so that you may learn a lesson. The lesson how not to run the affairs of a country or how to run a country aground. Nigeria has now been essentially run aground. And we must be prepared when we have our country to ensure that the diseases of Nigeria will not enter our land. I call upon you all to begin to think of ideas that will make it possible for us to run our country the way we have run our lives in history, where government is a servant of the people. The Yoruba government is a servant of its people. I repeat, the Yoruba government is a servant of its people. We must not have a situation in which our young people are pouring out of university and they're roaming the streets, and some of them going into the desert in order to reach Europe and die in the desert and the Mediterranean. We must create a country to which large numbers of our people abroad can come in order to use their expertise and their exposure to help to build a great new country for their people. Thank you for asking me to speak on this topic. I never knew I would be asked to speak upon it. So thank you, Dr. Okebionu. Thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all who are working for the Yoruba nation. May God grant our efforts with success, crown our efforts with success very soon. And may we have the humility when the country comes to surrender our personalities, our pride, and everything to the building of a great country, and not go around the way we are going now. Everybody thinking that he is the Lord and Master in his own right. No. If a country is to succeed, it must be a country of great humility and discipline. I thank you all. God bless you all.